Hi, everyone. We've been conditioned to believe that life is a linear race. We're taught that our desires are out there, somewhere in the distant future, and that if we just work hard enough, run fast enough, or wait long enough, we will eventually reach them. But what if I told you that the biology of your own body proves this is a lie? What if the future you are chasing isn't a destination, but a frequency that is already vibrating within the quantum field, waiting for you to tune into it? This is the core of the Assup protocol, the profound understanding that your desire is already a feeling fact. When I began my own journey of transition, I was exhausted from the chase. I was trying to manifest from a state of lack, which is like trying to get a radio to play music while it's unplugged. It wasn't until I dove into the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza and the principles of quantum biology that I understood the master stroke. You don't attract what you want, you manifest what you are. Science now proves that your brain and heart don't know the difference between an actual experience and an emotion you create by thought alone. When you master the state of Assup, you are signaling your genes ahead of the environment. You are telling your biology that the future has already arrived. In this video, we are going to explore the scientific proof that your future self is not a dream, but a biological reality you can access right now. We're going to stop wanting and start saturating. I'm Caroline, and I'm here to help you move from the world of effects into the world of causes. If you're ready to stop chasing and start tuning in, leave a comment below with the word tuned. And of course, make sure to subscribe to join our laboratory of sovereign initiates. Remember, the links to the books and free materials mentioned are all in the video description. Are you ready to change your chemistry and collapse your new timeline? Let's begin. Beyond the five senses, the quantum reality. To understand why your future already exists, we must first address the greatest illusion we've been sold, the absolute authority of our five senses. We've been trained since birth to believe that if we can't see it, touch it, or smell it, it isn't real. We treat the physical world as the ultimate truth, and our thoughts as mere fantasies. But the world of quantum physics has turned this hierarchy upside down. In the quantum realm, the solid world we see is actually 99.99999% empty space, or more accurately, it is 99.99999% energy and information. This means that the lead of your current life, your bank account, your current job, your physical surroundings, is just a tiny fraction of what is actually available to you. The rest is a vast ocean of possibilities, known as the quantum field. During my own journey of transition, I had to confront the sensory prison I was living in. I was so focused on the no I was receiving from my current environment that I couldn't see the yes that was already vibrating in the field. I had to learn that my five senses are only capable of perceiving the past. Because light and sound take time to reach our brain, by the time we see something, it has already happened. If you are trying to create your future by looking at your current senses, you are essentially trying to drive a car while looking only at the rearview mirror. You are recreating the past over and over again. To master the state of Assup, you must learn to close your eyes to the shadow and open your inner vision to the frequency. This brings us to the famous double-slit experiment, which is the cornerstone of everything we discuss here. Science has proven that subatomic particles, the very building blocks of your body and your bank account, behave as both waves and particles. When no one is observing them, they exist as a wave of probability. They are everywhere and nowhere at once. They are in a state of pure potential. But the moment a conscious observer looks at them, they collapse into a particle, a solid event in space and time. This is the observer effect. What most people don't realize is that your future is currently in that wave state. It's not that it doesn't exist, it's that it hasn't been observed into solid reality yet. The reason your future already exists is that every possible version of your life is already a frequency in that quantum wave. There is a version of you that is already wealthy, a version that is already healthy, and a version that is already living your highest purpose. They aren't coming to you, they are already here in a state of superposition. The only reason you aren't experiencing them is that your observer is currently locked onto your old frequency. You are constantly collapsing the same old lead-in particles because you are thinking the same thoughts and feeling the same emotions. You are stuck in a vibrational loop, observing the same reality into existence every single morning. When I started to apply this, I stopped asking the universe for things. Asking implies that it isn't here yet. Instead, I began to practice quantum observation. I realized that if I could hold the frequency of my desired future in my mind for long enough, I would eventually force the quantum field to collapse that specific wave into a particle. This isn't a wish, it's a mechanical certainty of physics. If the observer changes the way they look at the field must change. This is why the state of Assup is so powerful. When you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you are telling the quantum field, this is the reality I am now observing, and the field has no choice but to respond. The challenge we face as humans is that we are addicted to physical evidence. We want to see the money before we feel wealthy. We want to see the health before we feel whole. But the quantum field works in reverse. You must feel it as a frequency before it can become a fact. You have to be able to stand in the middle of your current, perhaps difficult reality and say with absolute sovereign authority, this is not the truth. This is just the old echo. The truth is the frequency I am holding right now. This requires a level of mental discipline that most people never develop. It requires you to trust the invisible more than the visible. In this laboratory, we call this vibrational sovereignty. It's the ability to decide which wave you are going to collapse today. During my career shift, I had to stop being a reactor to my circumstances. I had to stop letting my 5 senses dictate my mood. I started treating my imagination as the real world and the physical world as the simulation. I spent my 17-second and 68-second bursts, which we discussed in the previous protocol, obsessively observing the gold of my future. I wasn't trying to make it happen, I was simply observing it into existence. I want you to think about a radio. All the stations, jazz, rock, news, classical, are in the room with you right now. You can't see them or hear them with your 5 senses, but they are undeniably present. To hear the music, you don't have to create the radio waves, you just have to tune your receiver to the right frequency. Your future is the same. The success station is broadcasting right now. The abundance station is in your living room. You don't need to travel to your future. You just need to change your internal dial. You need to vibrate at the same speed as the music you want to hear. The biology of Assume begins here, in the understanding that you are a quantum tuner. Every thought you think and every emotion you feel is a turn of the dial. If you spend your day feeling frustrated about the lead in your life, you are tuning in to the lead station, and the universe, being a perfect transmitter, will give you 24/7 coverage of more things to be frustrated about. But the moment you use your sovereign focus to tune in to the gold, the music changes. It might take a moment for the speakers to catch up with the signal. This is the buffer of the 3D world, but the music has already shifted at the source. As we move into the next block, we're going to look at how this quantum tuning affects your physical body. We're going to look at the heart-brain coherence and how you can use your biological engine to lock in that signal. But first, I want you to sit with this realization. Nothing you desire is missing. It is simply in a wave state, waiting for you to become a bold enough observer to call it into the light. You are not a seeker of a future. You are the anchor of a timeline. And once you understand that your future already exists, the struggle of manifestation disappears, and the art of tuning begins. The Heart-Brain Coherence, the science of Assup. Now that we understand that the future exists as a wave of probability, the question becomes, how do we physically grab that frequency and pull it into our lives? This is where the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza and the HeartMath Institute becomes our roadmap. To manifest the state of Assup, you cannot just think about your future, you must teach your body emotionally what that future feels like before it happens. This requires a biological state called heart-brain coherence. Most people live in a state of incoherence. Their thoughts are going one way and their feelings are going another. They think, I am wealthy, but their heart is racing with the stress of a mounting debt. This creates a vibrational noise that the quantum field simply ignores. The science of Assup tells us that the brain is the electrical transmitter of your intent, but the heart is the magnetic generator of your reality. Your brain sends the signal out into the field, but it is your heart that draws the experience back to you. During my own transition, I realized I was all head and no heart. I was trying to visualize my way out of the grind, but my body was still addicted to the chemistry of stress. I was sending a clear signal of success from my mind, but a massive magnetic pole of fear from my heart. The result was total stagnation. I had to learn that to lock in a new timeline, I needed to synchronize these two massive energy centers. When you enter a state of coherence, your heart begins to beat in a consistent, rhythmic pattern. This sends a signal to the brain's creative centers to open up. Suddenly, you aren't just imagining a future, you are biologically simulating it. In this state, your nervous system begins to produce a very specific electromagnetic signature. This signature is the key that unlocks the specific wave of probability you chose in Block 1. If you want a life of freedom, you must generate the frequency of freedom in your chest right now. You have to convince your heart that the gold has already been found. This is why gratitude is often called the ultimate state of receivership. When you feel grateful, you are signaling to your body that the event has already occurred. Think about the biology of this. You only feel gratitude after you receive something, right? So when you feel gratitude in advance, you are hacking your biological system. You are bypassing the waiting room of the 3D world and jumping straight into the result. Your body, which is so objective that it doesn't know the difference between a real-life experience and an emotion created by thought, begins to release the same chemicals it would release if you had just won the lottery or started your dream business. You are literally changing your internal chemistry to match your external destiny. This is the masterstroke of the sovereign initiate. You stop being a victim of your environment and start being the architect of your internal state. I remember sitting in my old office, surrounded by the lead of a career that no longer fit me. My 5 senses were telling me I was stuck, but I would close my eyes and practice heart coherence. I would breathe into my heart center and summon the feeling of sovereign ease. For the first few minutes, it was a struggle. My brain would scream, "What are you doing? Look at these spreadsheets, look at these deadlines." But I would stay the course. I would keep breathing until I felt that magnetic shift in my chest. In that moment, for those few minutes, I wasn't trying to get somewhere else. I was already there. I was in the state of Assup. And because I held that coherence, the quantum field had no choice but to start rearranging my physical world to match my internal signature. This coherence creates what we call an electromagnetic signature. Imagine your body is a giant tower broadcasting a signal. If the signal is weak and fragmented, incoherence, the music of your life will be static. But when your heart and brain are in sync, your broadcast becomes a laser beam of intent. This beam is what pierces the quantum veil and collapses the wave into a particle. It is the biological command that the universe cannot ignore. You are no longer asking for a change. You are commanding it through the sheer power of your biological alignment. This is the difference between a seeker and a master. A seeker looks for the light. A master becomes the light source. This level of biological mastery is exactly what we cultivate here. If you are ready to stop being a vibrational victim and start becoming a quantum commander, you need to be part of this circle. Subscribe to the channel now and help us expand this laboratory. By subscribing, you aren't just hitting a button, you are making a sovereign choice to prioritize your alignment over your circumstances. Join us and let's turn this science into your daily reality. The beauty of heart-brain coherence is that it is a trainable skill. You don't need a PhD or a special gift. You just need the discipline to choose your internal state over your external evidence. During my journey, I learned that the world doesn't change until you change the atmosphere of your own body. If your internal atmosphere is one of waiting, the world will give you more things to wait for. If your internal atmosphere is Assup, the feeling of completion, the world will rush to fill that vacuum with physical results. You are the vacuum that pulls the gold into existence. I want you to understand that every time you fall back into stress, you are effectively unplugging your manifestation machine. Stress is a state of incoherence. It's a state where your body thinks it's being hunted by a predator. In that state, you cannot create. You can only survive. You cannot collapse a golden timeline if your biology is locked in a leaden survival mode. This is why the sovereign alchemist guards their peace like a treasure. Your peace is the soil in which your future self grows. Without coherence, the seeds of your desires have no place to take root. As we move forward, we have to look at how this coherence affects your very DNA. We are going to dive into the world of epigenetics and see how the state of Assup actually signals new genes in new ways. You aren't just changing your mind, you are literally rewriting your biological code to match a version of you that already exists in the future. But before we get there, I want you to practice this. Right now, take one breath into your heart. Feel the result. Don't look for it in the room, feel it in your blood. That feeling is the scientific proof that your future is already a fact. Epigenetics and the future self. If the heart and brain are the engines of manifestation, then your DNA is the software that executes the code of your reality. For decades, we were taught the lie of genetic determinism, the idea that you are a victim of your biology and that your genes dictate your destiny. But the field of epigenetics has shattered this old paradigm. Science now proves that your genes are not a fixed blueprint. They're more like a massive library of possibilities. Every single gene has a switch, and what flips that switch is the environment. But here is the masterstroke that changed my life. The environment doesn't just mean the world outside of you. The most powerful environment your genes respond to is the chemical environment inside your body. During my transition from the leaden grind to a sovereign life, I had to realize that I was literally addicted to my old self. Because I had spent years feeling stressed, overworked, and worried about the how, my body was bathing my cells in a cocktail of cortisol and adrenaline every single day. My genes were being signaled by the chemistry of lack. When you live in that state, your body is effectively being told that it is in a state of emergency. In an emergency, your biology shuts down long-term repair, it shuts down creative growth, and it focuses only on survival. You cannot manifest a golden future while your genes are being told that you are under attack by the present. To achieve the state of Assup, you must become a biological rebel. When you choose to feel the emotion of your future before it happens, when you sit in that 68-second window and truly saturate your cells in the feeling of freedom or wealth, you are sending a new chemical signal to your DNA. You are bypassing the physical senses and telling yourselves the event has already occurred. When you do this, your genes respond by upregulating, turning on the blueprints for health, abundance, and success, and downregulating, turning off the blueprints for stress and disease. You are literally signaling new genes in new ways. This is the biological definition of Assup. You aren't waiting for the future to change your body. You are changing your body to demand that the future appears. This is where the concept of the future self moves from a spiritual idea to a biological fact. There is a version of your DNA that is already expressing the successful version of you. That version isn't a fantasy, it's a potentiality in your genetic library. The only reason it hasn't been activated is that you haven't provided the chemical environment, the emotion, necessary to flip the switch. When I realized this, I stopped trying to get a new job or get more money. I started focusing on gene signaling. I asked myself, what would the chemistry of the version of me that is already successful feel like? And then I practiced that chemistry until it became more familiar than my stress. We have to talk about emotional addiction. This is the biggest hurdle in the Assup protocol. Your body is a wonderful servant, but a terrible master. If you have been unhappy or stressed for years, your body has become addicted to those chemicals. When you try to feel wealthy or sovereign for 17 seconds, your body will actually rebel. It will send a message to your brain saying, "This doesn't feel like us. Give me some worry. Give me some lack. I need my fix." Most people give in to this craving. They go back to the old frequency because it's comfortable, even if it's painful. But the sovereign alchemist knows that this discomfort is just the withdrawal phase of the old self. You have to stay in the vortex long enough to rewrite the addiction. Think of your body as the subconscious mind. It doesn't know the difference between a real event and a thought. If you can sustain the Assup vibration, your body begins to believe it is already living in that new reality. It starts to prepare for that reality. It changes your metabolism, your energy levels, and even your perception. Suddenly, you start noticing opportunities that were always there, but that your old stress-gating genes were filtering out. You are no longer looking at the world through the lens of "how do I survive?" but through the lens of "how do I expand?" This is the epigenetic shift. You have successfully moved your biology into the timeline of your desire. This process of biological rewiring is at the heart of everything we teach. We aren't just talking about positive thinking, we are talking about total system transformation. If you want to master the tools to signal your genes for a higher destiny, you need to stay connected to this frequency. Subscribe to the channel to ensure you never miss a laboratory update. By helping this community grow, you're helping us bring this new biology to thousands of others who are still trapped in the genetic prison of the past. Hit the button and let's keep signaling the gold. In my journey, the moment of checkmate came when I stopped looking for external validation and started looking for internal shift. I knew I had reached the state of Assup not when my bank account changed, but when my body felt different. I felt a sense of quiet certainty. My nervous system was no longer hunting for the result, because chemically, the result was already there. And because the quantum field is a mirror of your biological state, the physical world had no choice but to follow. The old lead of my life began to dissolve because there was no longer a biological foundation to support it. I want you to realize that you are a biochemical laboratory. Every minute, you are either signaling your leaden past or your golden future. There is no neutral ground. If you aren't consciously signaling the new, you are automatically signaling the old. To master the biology of Assup, you must be relentless. You must victimize your body with the chemistry of success. You must drown yourselves in the frequency of already done until your DNA has no choice but to execute the new code. As we move into the final block, we are going to look at the observation protocol, how to lock this biological shift into your 3D reality so it doesn't flicker back. We're going to talk about the long-term collapse of the wave. But for now, remember, you are not your genes. You are the observer who decides which genes to signal. You are the one holding the switch. Flip it to Assup and watch your biology become the bridge to your new world. The observation protocol, locking the timeline. Now we reach the most critical phase of the process, the observation protocol. Understanding the quantum physics and the biology is the foundation, but locking the timeline is what separates the temporary shift from the permanent transformation. In quantum mechanics, there is a phenomenon known as the quantum Zeno effect. It states that the more frequently you observe a system in a specific state, the more you freeze that system in that state. This means that to turn your golden future into a solid 3D reality, you must become a relentless observer of your new frequency. You cannot just visit the state of Assup for 17 seconds in the morning and then spend the other 23 hours observing the lead of your current problems. If you do, you are effectively uncollapsing your new timeline and returning to the old one. During my own transition, I had to develop what I call vibrational tunnel vision. I realized that the 3D world is like a delayed broadcast. What you see in your life today is just the echo of who you were weeks ago. If you react to that echo, you reinforce it. I had to learn to look through my current bank balance, through my current job, and through my current limitations as if they were ghosts. I treated them as holograms of the past that had no power over my present frequency. My job was to stay locked on the signal of the result with such intensity that the quantum field had no choice but to stabilize that new particle in my physical world. Let's look at a practical example. Imagine you are manifesting a new level of financial sovereignty. In the old, lead-in way of living, you would see a bill and your biology would immediately signal stress and lack. That observation collapses the wave of scarcity into your reality once again. In the observation protocol, the moment that bill arrives, you pause. You don't ignore the bill, but you change the meaning of the observation. You observe it from the state of Assup, the version of you that has so much abundance that this bill is insignificant. You stay in the heart-brain coherence we practiced. By refusing to give the lead your emotional charge, you stop feeding it. You are effectively starving the old timeline of the energy it needs to exist. This requires what Gregg Braden calls the language of the divine matrix. The matrix doesn't speak in words, it speaks in coherent feelings. To lock your timeline, you must walk through your day as if you are already living the result. It isn't about pretending, it's about quantum certainty. When I was leaving the corporate world to become a sovereign guide, I started making decisions from my future self's perspective. I would ask, how would the successful version of me handle this phone call? How would she walk into this room? By observing my day through the eyes of the person I had already become in the vortex, I was continuous collapsing the new timeline. I was making it so familiar to my biology that the physical world eventually had to yield to my internal pressure. Another practical layer of the protocol is environmental shielding. You must realize that most people around you are professional observers of lead. They are constantly reminding you of how things are and why it's hard. If you allow their observation to influence your own, you lose your lock on the timeline. I had to become very selective about who I shared my energy with during my transition. I had to protect my 68-second windows as if they were my life force. You are a sovereign observer, and your primary responsibility is to keep your quantum eye on the prize, regardless of the static coming from the outside world. Think of it like a long exposure photograph. If the camera moves even a little bit, the image is blurred. To get a clear, solid manifestation, you must keep the camera of your mind perfectly still on the target. This stillness is the state of Assup. It's the feeling of, I don't need to see it yet because I already feel it, and therefore it is done. This is the checkmate of the alchemist. When you reach the point where the internal feeling is more real than the external evidence, the timeline is locked. The gold is no longer a possibility. It is an inevitable physical fact. As you move through this week, I want you to practice the observation audit. Every hour, ask yourself, what am I currently collapsing? Am I observing the lead of the past or the gold of the future? If you find yourself slipping, don't judge it. That just creates more incoherence. Simply strike a new 17-second match. Return to the heart. Re-signal the genes. The more you do this, the more the quantum Zeno effect works in your favor. Eventually, the effort of observation disappears, and the new reality becomes your default setting. You have successfully navigated the biology of Assup and turned a quantum potential into a physical masterpiece. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for staying with us until the very end. Your commitment to your own evolution is what makes this community so vibrant and powerful. It is an honor to be your guide through these scientific and spiritual frontiers, and I am deeply grateful that we are on this journey of sovereign creation together. Thank you for your time, your focus, and for being part of this laboratory. Make sure to subscribe to the channel to help us continue this work and reach more seekers who are ready to master their own reality. Your subscription is a vital part of this mission. Also, for those who want to deepen their understanding of Dr. Joe Dispenza, Gregg Braden, and the mechanics of quantum biology, I have included links to their most transformative books and additional free materials in the description below. Be sure to explore those resources to further ground the concepts we've covered today. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, keep your biology aligned and your observation locked on the gold.